Okay, in order to understand the beginning of film, we have to understand the beginning of photography. Photography was invented more or less in the late 1830s, early 1840s. It's the method of recording the image of an object through the action of light on a light-sensitive material. One of the first pioneers of this early art form was Louis Daguerre, French painter, physicist. He found an iodized copper plate put into a camera when you exposed it with light, and then you took the copper plate out of the camera and exposed it to fumes of mercury, and then later fixed the mercury fumed copper plate. You fix that with a solution of salt, and you get a photograph. It would later become known as the daguerreotype, and they would become wildly popular and famous. But for motion pictures, we don't get any action until the 1870s, thanks to this man, a wealthy horse breeder. His name's Leland Stanford, and in the 1870s, he's a wealthy railroad tycoon and horse breeder. He's actually the former governor of California, and he's the co-founder of Stanford University. But in the 1870s, he gets curious, and he wonders, are all of the feet of a horse actually in the air at the same time when it runs? So he hires a British wildlife photographer to try and see if he can capture a horse on film. That guy's name is Edward Muybridge. Edward Muybridge? We'll go with that. Muybridge, he connected 12 cameras and some string, and he is actually able to photograph a horse trot in succession. He would later spend much of his career at the University of Pennsylvania, producing thousands of images that capture progressive movements within fractions of a second. So now the pace of development for motion pictures quickens, and it really quickens thanks to the help of George Eastman. And he first manufactured photographic dry plates in 1878. But then he invents the sensitized paper, and he puts it on a roll. So now instead of glass plates, we have this film paper, this special paper that's light sensitive, and it goes on a roll, and film is born. In 1888, Eastman introduces a box camera with the film roll loaded inside and sells it under a new name, Kodak. In 1889, the paper roll is replaced by a synthetic plastic material called celluloid. Thomas Alva Edison, he's next. He and his young British assistant William Dixon, they begin constructing devices for recording movement on film, as well as a device for viewing the film in their lab. They do all of this in New Jersey. Around 1890, Dixon filmed his first experimental movie, Monkey Shines No. 1, and it becomes the first motion picture film ever produced on photographic film in the U.S. At the same time, Edison and Dixon are working on film cameras here in America. The Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis, they run a company that manufactures photographic equipment, and they live in France. They come up with their own camera. They use it to start documenting the world around them, making what they call the actualities. On Saturday, April 14th, 1894, a bulky, coin-operated movie cabinet version of the kinetoscope hits the scene and becomes a huge hit. Movie parlors start to pop up all throughout New York City. Each viewing of the short 5-second film costs a nickel. These parlors are quickly called Nickelodeons. And that's basically the beginning of early film.